Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Well, good Monday morning, political fighters. Welcome to the August 10th, 2026 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278 is our number. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. And we are also broadcasting on WARR in North Carolina and KTNF in Minnesota. You can email me at richard@wcpt820.com and follow me on all the socials under Choose Views. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews, Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive, Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. It's The Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. And also in the evenings, The Politics Bar, The Matt McNeil Show, and The Gailey Show. And make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. And speaking of our weekend shows, I hope you guys gave a little love yesterday. I saw Michelle Peltier sat in and held it down with Devin here on the show, on the family meeting. So there you go. At Heartland Signal, a couple of quick ones for you. Quote, we're spending billions of dollars to deploy high-speed broadband, but we're not making sure that it's actually usable and affordable for everyday consumers. That's FCC Commissioner Anna Gomez criticizing the Trump administration for weakening internet affordability programs. That's one you want to check out. It's a good segment. And you guys may remember speaking with Kentucky Democratic Senate candidate Charles Booker, who is running to win that seat. And he talked about the importance of being in different communities and making sure that every community recognizes what our party is trying to do to help as many people as possible. So make your way over to heartlandsignal.com and check out all the good stuff that we have over there for you. On today's show, we've got a couple of quick guests. I'll give you Donnie Robles is the senior legislative director at the Illinois Environmental Council, also known as the IEC. And we're going to talk a little bit about the 2026 legislative agenda and the state's environmental scorecard. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, Sarah Jones, managing editor and co-publisher of Politicus USA and the Daily Politicus with Sarah Jones, will be with us. And then in the 7:30 hour, Leaving MAGA's Rich Logis will be joining us. You guys know we've had Rich on for a little over a year now, every few weeks, to talk about things that are happening with Leaving MAGA. His guest, and that will be joining us, is Bailey Tyler, who is got something to say about her transition, how she became part of MAGA, and then what what pushed the envelope for her to say, yeah, it's time to go. And I made not the best of decisions. So they'll be with us in the 7:30 hour. So looking forward to Rich and to Bailey and of course to Sarah and to Donnie, all hanging out with us today. All right. So question of the day, because we have some other things we want to make sure you have a chance to check out. Question of the day. Now that Todd Blanche has been confirmed by Senate Republicans, because this is a straight party line vote, guys. This wasn't, it wasn't a situation where we had, 10 Democrats that thought, well, he's not that bad of a guy after all. We basically held the line on this. But now that that's the case, now that Todd Blanche has been confirmed by the Republicans in the Senate, who do you think will be the next Donald Trump retribution target? Because you know that it's not just the way in which he handled the Epstein files. It's not just the way that he's handling this slush fund. It's not just those things. He's also been part of the cabal of people that went after James Comey and went after Letitia James. So who do you guys think will be his next or his first target, if you will, at the orders of Donald Trump? Because he's already made it clear, I'm Donald Trump's attorney. I mean, that was a as the phrase goes. That was one of those Freudian moments that he had during the hearing. So let me know. I want to like to hear what you guys have to say. Give us a call at 773-763-9278 or send us a text to that number. But and then, of course, go to our Facebook page to leave your comments there. Now that Todd Blanche has been confirmed by the Senate Republicans, who will be the next Donald Trump retribution target that comes through the Department of Justice? I'm curious of what you guys have to say there, so let us know. Yeah, that's what the Department of Justice is going to look like, certainly for the next 90 days until we get to the midterms. And until that point, we'll see where they go, what they do, who they go after, and what garbage reasoning that they come up with to explain why they're going after certain people. So let us know your thoughts. Give us a call, send us a text, and we will do our best to get that on, because I'm curious. I genuinely am. I hope everybody had a good weekend and you were able to do some good stuff. If you're here in the Chicagoland area, we had weather that held up. Got a little bit of rain yesterday. Rained yesterday. Yeah. Little. Okay. Devin looked at me with the stank eye like, what is wrong with you, Chew? That's right. We got heavy rain yesterday. I was, Devin, we got out early in the morning. We got all our stuff done because I knew I actually even said to my wife, it's going to rain starting around noon or 1 o'clock. And so, it got nice and dark and it rained pretty hard. And I forgot about that because I stayed in. I got up early, got stuff done. So, I hope that everybody was safe, that people were able to navigate and get around, and nothing too crazy happened to anybody. So Devin's looking at me like, okay, Richard. But if you're in the upper Midwest, we all had a little bit of rainy weather. But Saturday was gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous day, and I hope everybody was able to get out and do some stuff. But right now, Progressive's got a little clip for you. I told you guys this last week. The Senate seat in Michigan is extraordinarily important, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that Dr. El-Sayed wins that seat, because the alternative of Mike Rogers, people can say what they want to about Dr. Said, all of which is much of the garbage that we're going to hear for the next 90 days or close to 90 days. But Mike Rogers is far worse. So that's why I'm going to be leaning into this race. I'm going to do my part to help him get elected, because we have to hold that seat. So check this out, Progressives.
In case you missed any of that, he said that the Democratic Party wants people who hate the idea of even private property ownership. It's very popular in places you wouldn't expect. Speaking of Michigan, he said you hold yourself out as a working class hero who's going to fight for the working class by flooding your state with low-wage immigrants. What's your response?
Is that Peter Thiel's boy with that Ohio charisma he's got? That guy. I think we've had enough of him. The last thing that he said that made any sense was hillbilly elegy, after he said that Donald Trump had no business being president of anything. That was the last time he made sense, and then he decided to suck up to power. But that's exactly what this is about. You've got Republicans who'll do anything for power and money, including corrupt their office, just like Mike Rogers has. For the 14 years he was serving in Congress, he took over $1 million from the pharmaceutical industry. He voted 19 times to raise prescription drug prices.
So that was posted by Hear Me Out on this, which is a really good source to turn to for some great clips. But that was an interview Jacob Sabaroff did of Dr. Said, talking about what J.D. Vance said about him and what he will do in Michigan. I don't know the last time that JD was in Michigan to do anything effective or beneficial to the folks of the state of Michigan, but I do know that Dr. Said has been working hard, as his competitors have, both Mallory McMorrow and Haley Stevens. So, this is one of those moments when Dr. Said got it right. JD Vance is Peter Thiel's boy. I've been saying my version of it for a long time. It's true. He is. He definitely is bought and paid for by Peter Thiel, Palantir, and all the rest that go with these tech boys who've got JD in their crosshairs. They are going to puppet him to death. Watch after the midterms what starts to happen with JD Vance. He'll probably start to speak a little bit more about some things, but trust me, if we have the House and the Senate, his ability to break ties, this is why it's important, guys. It's as important. We have that majority, then JD Vance is basically, if you think that Donald Trump will become less effective or be in a lame duck president. J.D. Vance will be more of a lame duck vice president because if we have the House and the Senate, he can't come in and break ties. And that's why we want that majority. So there you go. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, political fighters, progressives, and all the rest, welcome back to Chew's Views. I'm Richard Chew if you're just tuning in. A couple of quick Chew's Views news items on this August 10th, 2026. College grads are moving back home after the peak COVID-19 rates. Young adults across the U.S. are once again moving back home at peak levels, according to the New York Times, which cited data from the Economic Bureau of Research. More than 25% of recent grads aged 23 to 27 have opted to live with their parents again. The same numbers seen during the COVID-19 pandemic. Research suggests the trend is fueled by a weak entry-level job market and that perhaps there is less stigma over returning to one's childhood home in a post-pandemic world. Yes, you can still get fired while you're on leave. A lawsuit filed last month by former Meta employees highlights a common misconception about workplace protections for staffers who had taken advantage of the leave of absence. Workers often think it gives them an added protection, and that's simply not the case, according to attorney Julie Levinson-Werner. While leave laws safeguard against retaliatory firing, employees are no less at risk of layoffs associated with corporate restructuring. Demand for chief of staff role is skyrocketing, 75 to 85% increase. More chief executives want something like IMAX CEO Richard Gelfeld has had for 16 years, a chief of staff. Postings for the position have increased by an estimated 85% in some areas since early 2020. While an executive assistant figures out what time something goes on the calendar, a chief of staff figures out whether it should go on the calendar at all, tells one expert for the New York Times. They also earn more money. Somewhere, but the disparities between the numbers for executive assistants, $74,000 to chief of staffs can earn upwards of $250,000 depending on experience. So it's an increasing position and role. Private schools are offering admission directly to students. Hundreds of private universities are bypassing the traditional college application process and admitting students before they even apply, according to Bloomberg. It's all done through the Common Apps Direct Admissions Program, a nonprofit that allows students to apply to multiple schools. Some institutions, including North Carolina's Wingate University, are hoping the approach, which includes generous scholarships, will attract more diverse applicants. Per Bloomberg, the trend comes as private colleges are pivoting away from the ivory tower mentality to an all-are-welcome approach. And here's one for you. Dizzying restaurants, businesses are really holding on to the reservation concept. Apps like OpenTable and Resy digitize restaurant reservations, saving patrons the hassle of a phone call. But beneath the surface lies what the Wall Street Journal is calling a flurry of deal-making that complicates matters considerably. Participants include the app's credit cards and the booming industries of middleman, jockeying for some of the estimated $1.5 trillion that Americans spend annually dining out. So there you go, guys. A couple of quick Chew's Views news items on this August 10th, 2026. Today on Live, local and progressive, Joan Esposito will be taking your calls and talking with Carolyn Fiddler, state politics expert and author of the newsletter This Week in State House Action. Ray LaHood, former Illinois congressman and former transportation secretary. Peter Giangreco, Democratic strategist, partner at the Strategy Group. That's Live, local and progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT AM 820, the heartlandsignal.com site, and tune in. And then for our listeners, our WCPT listeners tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by Tennessee Brando, Midas Touch contributor, social media commentator, and songwriter from East Tennessee. He'll talk about last Thursday's Tennessee primary election and more. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7 here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow on Choose Views, my guests will include Ryan Nunn, Director of Research at Yale University's Budget Lab and former economist at the White House's Council on Economic Advisors, North Carolina Democratic State Rep. Rodney Pierce, and Illinois Congressman Danny Davis. That's who we'll be talking with tomorrow here on Choose Views. So make sure you check out Joan and Patty, and I'll give you guys another reminder a little bit later in the show. So there you go. All right. Today's segment on something to chew on. So what do we have to say here? Well, this has to do with Dr. Fauci and Colin Kaepernick. They have something in common that they have a couple things in common. They both did not fit the narrative that America wanted to force them to follow. As you know, right now, Dr. Fauci is dealing with and facing what the Republicans in Congress have deemed he should be held in contempt for doing what many people will say saved millions of lives. Dr. Fauci wanted to use his medical experience to save lives. That's all he wanted to do. And I think he did a pretty doggone good job at it, with a lot of hurdles, believe it, along the way. And those hurdles came mostly from Republicans, federal, state, and local level Republicans. It came from a lot of, there's some people who would call themselves independents or maybe even moderate Democrats, and others that, were against what some of the recommendations were from Dr. Fauci. But at the end of the day, his objective was not to harm anybody. It was to help people. It was to put people in a better place and to make sure that we all kind of came together to fight a common enemy that we had at the time. COVID did not pick color, community, religion, faith, shoe size, zip code. And the proof of that is that it got the dude that was in the White House at the time. So, Dr. Fauci was trying to do something to help our communities. Colin Kaepernick wanted to use his years of experiencing racial and social discrimination to save lives as well. Same thing, different venue, but similar belief. They wanted to help people who were at threat or in potentially in danger. But America was not ready and certainly not able to change their levels of comfort to acknowledge the problems that we have. Dr. Fauci is being held in contempt for his attempt to help people be in a better way and to be protected and to be safe. Colin Kaepernick simply wanted to say, and I say simply, not to oversimplify it, he wanted to make sure that the racial discrimination and the social discrimination that he had seen in his lifetime when he decided to take a knee on the sidelines of an NFL football game was for the same reason. It was to save black men's lives who had been targeted by law enforcement of different levels, and frankly, to save many black families from the same horror that he had witnessed and he had been a part of, having been racially profiled. Dr. Fauci was, I guess you could say this is kind of my own word, he was educationally profiled. He's a doctor, and he's a smart guy that understood, not just when it came to COVID, but let's go back a few years. He was one of the few medical professionals that stepped to the front of the line when we were dealing with the beginnings of HIV and AIDS. And he made it clear that he wanted to, at that point in his life, save people's lives. But now the Republicans want to hold him in contempt. And they want to hold him in contempt because not because he was wrong, but because they disagreed with what he was doing. And Colin Kaepernick was, by many measure, lost his NFL football career, whatever it was going to be. Starting quarterback, backup quarterback, whatever. Because he saw things differently, and he wanted the country to see things differently and to act differently. We got past COVID to a great extent, but black men are still being racially profiled and killed by the police, as witnessed by so many of the videos that we see on social media. But we cannot forget that these two men have also something else in common. And they have, in 2020, they received the distinguished Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Ripple of Hope Award because they both have done what I would like to say is they threw a pebble in the pond. And that pebble in the pond created the ripple that said that we all can do better if we all lean in. That, my friends, is patriotism and courage. And that's what we should all be about. Just something to chew on. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. As always, the number is 773-763-9278. We will squeeze some of your calls in. Not to worry. We figured it out. We figured out how we're going to do it, so not to worry. But with us this morning is the senior legislative director at the Illinois Environmental Council and has been one of those leading voices to help us better understand a little bit more about our environment, but also how we're doing here in Illinois and parts of the upper Midwest. I'd like to welcome to the show Danny Robles. Good morning, Danny. Welcome to Chew's Views.
Thank you, Richard, so much for having me.
Absolutely, man. Good to hear your voice this morning. I'll start right off by asking you the question. Let's do this. Let's tell everybody, if you will, a little bit about your background and the work that you've been doing. So then we can talk about, the legitimacy of what the Illinois Environmental Council represents. Yeah,
definitely. It would be my pleasure. So I've been working with the Illinois Environmental Council for the better part of the last 5 years and have had a really great pleasure to carry on its mission. We've been around since 1975 with a mission to safeguard Illinois, our people, our plants, our animals, and natural systems that we all depend on. And we do that collaboratively working with over 100 organizations across the state to make sure that we're advancing equitable public policies to create healthy environments for Illinois through collaboration, building power, and advocacy. And for me, this has been a big part of my goal as I got into the political landscape over the last 8 years to ensure that we're fighting against climate change. And our mission allows us to really get involved in that locally here in Illinois, and as we continue to grow, doing that at the federal level as well.
We have just come off of what earlier in the summer we had the smoke that came down from Canada that hit a lot of the country, frankly. But here in Illinois, we were definitely probably one of the major cities that got some of the worst of it. I know that New England got it as well, New York and Boston. But tell us how we have, I guess you could say, gotten past that. Did Mother Nature just do her thing, and as time went by, our air quality improved? Talk to us a little bit how that originated, and then how it impacted us here in Illinois.
Definitely. Part of the reason why we got into this situation is we haven't taken climate seriously as a country for several decades now, and we know that global emissions continue to rise up year after year, and that ends up turning into some of these issues like the forest fires in Canada. It just happened that the forest fire caught the right wind stream to come down towards the Midwest, and we were part of that part of that wind stream, and we did face some of the worst air quality in the whole world during those few days. So, I think those are some of the reasons why we continue to work with our legislators to make sure that we're taking the seriousness of climate change here at home and doing our part to make sure that we're evaluating policies that will help us move that. And that's part of where our scorecard comes in. We publish this annual environmental legislative scorecard to make sure that people are aware how their legislator are doing for pro and anti-environmental bills. And this is the only free and publicly available resource that tracks and evaluates environmental voting for state legislators. So it allows us to really talk to each legislator and let them know, look, we have these issues that are happening worldwide. We're not going to be alone in this in our state. We need you to take things seriously here, so then we can elevate this and co-create policies across the country, and then hopefully do that across the world once we have a better administration.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about, we'll get into the administration in a second on a federal level, but let's talk a little bit about how the scorecard can be used by everyday folks, and then how that links them to the state legislators, I should say.
Definitely. So our scorecard is especially powerful accountability tool this year. We know that this is an election year, and people are going to be wondering how to measure their own state representative or their state senator, and they can go to our website at iowaenviro.org/scorecard, and they get a free copy today, and they can take a look at how our legislature has been voting on pro or anti-environmental bills. So every year we work with our 100+ organizations to develop policies, and based on these policies, we grade our legislators based on their voting record in their chambers. And this year was pretty exciting for us. 58% of state House representatives and 46% of sitting state senators had a perfect 100% voting record this year, which is up 3 points from last year, and it's our second year in a row that we have 100% legislator, or 50% of the legislature has voted 100%. So we know that we're building a climate majority, and our legislature continues to deliver key environmental wins and demonstrating the importance of electing strong environmental champions. But that also goes back to the constituents, making sure that they are holding their legislators accountable. And that's some of the work that we do as the Illinois Environmental Council, is make sure that we provide resources and tools for everyday constituents to understand what votes are coming up, when they're coming up in Springfield, how they can take action by calling their legislator or sending an email. And then inversely, we know that there's still a number of legislators who are not voting 100%. They might be lower than that. We had several legislators that voted below 50%, and I think that allows constituents and residents to make sure that they're voting consciously during November to either vote that legislator out or have those tough conversations in the coming years to make sure that they are voting in line with the environment and climate.
What have been some of the roadblocks then, I guess you could say, in terms of pitching workforce solutions and getting those to the state decision makers or the state legislators?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think some of the roadblocks that I think sometimes we face are a lot of people think if we're pushing for climate solutions or environmental policies that this is just like anti-business legislation, but I think that's stuff that we are starting to shift the model and really thinking about how do we connect a pro-business mindset to a pro-climate mindset, and bringing some of those resources to the legislators, and understanding that a lot of the legislators don't have that background. Our job as the Environmental Council is to provide the resources, connect them to some of the policymakers or policy analysts or researchers to ensure that we are developing the legislation correctly for them, and then educating them on what the advantages are for not just community members, but also for the budget for our state.
Are you finding that, I guess I know the answer to this is probably yes, but that more and more legislators are, I guess, becoming good partners and helping you with their colleagues to get them on board to make better decisions. Do you see what I'm saying, Danny?
Yeah, I would say so. I think, just looking at our voter record, right? We know that we had over 50% this year that voted 100% of the time with climate, and it's not a surprise that we see such a strong Democratic Party representation among those 100% scoring legislators. And there are some high-scoring Republicans as well, 80%. And I think that's one of the things that we continue to push is educating those strong green climate champions and making sure that they're bringing along their colleagues to the table and having those tough conversations. So when we're down in Springfield, we can gain traction with some people that, maybe in the past had voted anti-climate, where we're starting to see that shift. And also I think the accountability tool has been such a great piece for us to, impact the next General Assembly to ensure that we're bringing more climate champions.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. So talk a little bit about some of the acts that have been part of this legislative cycle that have been put forward, that have been discussed, and maybe even approved.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, this year was actually a pretty big transformational year. We called it the year of climate because we got two major pieces of legislation that would impact our emissions, but we also passed quite a number of others that are going to help our state be leaders in environmental justice and plastic-free solutions. So a couple of big ones that we passed this year were the Clean, Reliable Grid Affordability Act, and that was championed by Senator Sodelman and Representative Hoffman. And this really targets the rising energy costs and price volatility that have hit our Illinois ratepayers. So with this particular bill, we're really looking to expand residential energy efficiency programs and also ensure that our grid is building up a more reliable system to bring on more of the renewable energy that we're fighting for. And as you might know as well, we had a big transit bill that the Illinois Environmental Council was deeply involved in. The Northern Illinois Transit Authority Act that was championed by Senator Villalobos and Representative Delgado helped us establish a new transit agency here in Illinois that will take the responsibility from the Regional Transportation Authority and make sure that we are delivering a system that delivers a more seamless and reliable and accessible transit service. And for us, that's big to ensure that we're reducing transportation emissions that continue to be the number one source of greenhouse emissions in our state. We know that if we have a reliable transit system, we can get more people off cars and help reduce the emissions. And also with the better connectivity of this transit system, we know that we can have stronger procurement that in the long run will also help us reduce the amount of diesel buses on the transit system's stock and ensure that we bring others. And a couple others that I also mentioned are the Environmental Justice Air Permitting Act that Senator Villalobos and Representative Jimenez championed that will put our state as one of the leading states to ensure that we are protecting environmental justice communities from industrial air pollution by ensuring that we have a codified law and definition of what environmental justice community is and how the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency will be able to enforce cumulative impacts of air burden on these environmental justice communities.
That's phenomenal that we've got that much legislation going forward and of course that we have an agency, an organization I should say like yours, that's keeping everybody honest, or at least working hard to keep everybody honest and keep everyday citizens informed. Danny, let's take a little bit of a break. When we come back, I want to talk about something you just touched on in terms of where we are in relationship to the other states in the country and talk a little bit about water quality and a few other items. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chu's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chu's Views. Thanks for being with us this morning. Danny Robles is a senior legislative director at the Illinois Environmental Council, and most certainly keeping us on track and keeping our legislators on track when it comes to the acts that they're putting forward, and good voting from Democrats, which is always good to see. And Danny, that kind of leads me to a question that I want to ask you about. How we rank, where we fit into the conversation, meaning Illinois, when it comes to other states. And I know that you probably have data and you've had conversations with people, but how do we fit in the nation as it relates to our air quality? Let's start with air quality, then we can get into some of the other parts of the environmental conversation.
Definitely. I think as far as air quality goes, that we do have some concerns on where we are historically. Over the last few years, we've seen multiple reports that several of our big cities within Illinois, Chicago included, are in the top 10 worst of air quality cities in the state. And a lot of that comes from multiple sources of emissions. We have industry that pumps up a lot of toxins into the air. Our transportation system, unfortunately, diesel is a toxin that emits nitrous oxides and particulate matter that are harmful for our lungs and our heart. And those are things that continue to rise. But our state legislature continues to take some of these things seriously, and we're continuing to advance some of these policies. And our organization is part of a larger network with the League of Conservation Voters, and we get an opportunity to talk to multiple state partners from other states. And we know that there's several of the other states that are looking at Illinois, at what we're doing with the environment. Over the last 8 years, we've passed big bills that are addressing energy consumption, they're addressing environmental justice, they're addressing water quality, that are putting us on the map, and a lot of other states are looking at us to see what we're doing here. And we know this is going to take some time to do the final reduction of emissions, but I think we have some strong leaders here that are helping us advance the policies forward.
So we're ranking pretty high, but it sounds like, I guess this is kind of one of those common sense things, because of the strong industrial production that we have here in Illinois at large, but specifically Northern Illinois, Chicago, even more so. We are going to be faced with the challenge of that reality, and it's a question of, I think maybe this is my statement. You can round it off a little bit, that we do have to work hard to get as much legislative participation, which we have, but also, Danny, businesses to participate in this process and be willing to be a little bit more prudent when it comes to disposing of things, when it comes to their manufacturing process. Is that a reality, or is that too much pie in the sky?
I think that's a reality that we continue to challenge every single year. As our job's not just to establish relationships with legislators, but it's also to establish relationships with other stakeholders in this process, and help bring them along and help them see that they have a responsibility here to react to the changing climate, and ensuring that we're developing new pathways and ideas to shift that old added way of just business first, and then really thinking about how do you bring a sustainable business model that will help us reduce pollution, emissions, and other things that are affecting our environment.
Data centers is a big part of the conversation with anybody and everybody that I talk to, and I know that you have your conversations around it as well. A couple more questions before we wrap up, Danny, but talk to us about where we stand, and not, obviously just in Illinois, but the country. But give us your scorecard on where we are with navigating through data centers being in Illinois, and certainly here in the greater Chicago metropolitan area.
If we were to give a grade to the data center scorecard right now, it would be incomplete, because we haven't finalized a strong legislation on data centers. And I know that is an ambition that the legislature is taking on this summer, and coming back fall for veto session is addressing how we're going to handle data centers. I think a couple of things that we have been encouraged by is the governor pausing tax incentives for new data centers. That gives us some leverage to ensure that we're advancing our policy forward. So we've been working closely with the Clean Jobs Coalition to push for what we call the POWER Act, which stands for Protecting Our Waters, Ratepayers, and Energy. I think I got those last two flipped.
Energy, it's okay.
Energy and ratepayers. And our goal with this bill is to address both the three-prong approach of we want to make sure that these data centers aren't affecting the energy cost of everyday residents like we've seen in other states, that they are not overtaking like potable water that is necessary for everyday lives of citizens, and ensuring that they're establishing strong community-based agreements so that the communities that live next to these data centers have an opportunity to thrive and get some resources that are really necessary to ensure the livelihood. So stuff that we've seen across other states that haven't done it right, I think we're trying to take those lessons and ensure that we have stronger regulations here.
Yeah, that's incomplete is not bad. It sounds like we're still working toward the proper legislation. And you're right, the governor has definitely stepped up to make it, for lack of better words, a little bit more challenging. And then with that comes a responsibility as it relates to new data centers, or at least how they're able to come into the state. So thank you for reminding us of that. One of the other big ones, and I'm a novice in this space, but PFAS. Everybody that I talk with, that's in the energy space or in the environmental space, talks about this. It's a national issue, but it's certainly one that's here. The Illinois EPA has been actively, involved, and I know you guys have been as well. Give us a little bit of your assessment there.
Yeah, I think we're taking some big steps forward on the PFAS situation. Last year, we were able to work with the legislature to pass a PFAS phase out that essentially prevents PFAS from being part of 5 different types of products in Illinois. Basically, anything that touches our body, PFAS can be part of that here in our state. So we're one of the first states to be able to advance strong PFAS regulation. I think some of the ongoing conversations that we are also working towards is making sure that we have a strong testing system on PFAS. And some of the concerns that we've identified is there isn't a strong governance structure around water in our state, and those are some of the upcoming challenges that we're looking to roll up our sleeves on, just knowing that there are multiple agencies that are tracking water in our state, but there isn't enough collaboration or coordination between these state agencies to really have a game plan on how we're going to clean up the PFAS situation. So those are things that we've heard multiple times. We have great partners with the Alliance of the Great Lakes that have given us a lot of tools and information on how they're approaching this with other states that touch the Great Lakes, and we're looking to be a leader here in Illinois on the clean water solution as well.
The one thing that I can tell from everything that you said, Danny, is that you looked at this in an optimistic way, and that we can be forward thinking, and our vision can be that one of which says we can get this done. We can move things in a better direction. So I'm really glad to hear that, and look forward to having you back on the show again, because this is definitely not something that's going away, and you guys have been just such champions in this space. So thank you for that, Danny. How can folks get involved? How can they find you? I always want to plug people into the organizations like yours that are doing such great work.
Definitely. The easiest way that people can get involved is follow us on social media. Our handles are at ILEnviro, or they can come to our website at ilenviro.org. They can find a scorecard there. We put together action alerts when legislation is coming in Springfield that we're going to need support for legislators to push forward. If people want to roll up their sleeves a little bit more, we host lobby days every single year where we bring hundreds of people from across the state to talk to their legislators. Last year, we had 58 out of 59 Senate districts had a participant come down. So it's just showcasing that people are, really involved in the environment, and for people who are looking to continue getting involved, our movement is growing, and we definitely need more voices to ensure that we continue fighting against the polluters that are causing climate change.
Absolutely. Danny Robles, Senior Legislative Director at the Illinois Environmental Council. Thanks for being with us this morning, Danny. We'll talk to you soon, okay?
Thanks so much, Richard. Hope you have a great day.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.
Very important stuff. Very important stuff. I was going to try to grab a call, but it looks like okay. One of the things that Danny mentioned a moment is earlier in the segment. He talked about the number of legislators that are kind of, in addition to voting in the right direction, they're bringing people on board. They're working across the aisle to get some of the Republicans that haven't been voting to the percentages that they want or that they think would be better for some of the acts to get passed. And that, to me, is encouraging, because I think it says that the Democratic leadership isn't just there to cast a vote, but they're also trying to make sure that the folks that they would call their colleagues, and you know how I'm about that word, are coming on board. Because, listen, I've said this so many times, and I'll probably say it again, is that if me and two other people were walking down any street in Chicago or any place in Illinois, and there's another 7 to 8 people walking with us or walking behind us, we're all breathing the same air at that moment. We're all dealing with the same environmental issues at that moment. And it's incumbent on us to make sure that we take care of this thing that, if you want to say, Mother Nature or Father Nature or whomever provided for us, and that's our environment and our climate. So this is an opportunity, I think, for all of us to kind of raise the bar, raise the standard. And I'll ask this question of all of us. I need to close the refrigerator door a little bit quicker than leaving it open for 5 more seconds. I mean, that does matter. And, there's things that, I try not to do, and that's sitting idle with the car running and the air conditioning running. Little things like that, not topping off the gas. When the thing clicks, it's full. There's little baby things that I think that we all can do. And, my father used to say, turn that light off in the room if you're not in there. So, find a couple of things. Just ask yourself, take a moment and go, what are some small things that I can do? Not everybody's going to recycle. That may not be their beat. We get that. Not everybody's going to do everything. But the thing you don't want, there's 2 things that you don't want to do, and that's sit on your hands instead of rest on our laurels and not do anything. So ask yourself, what are some things that I can do? Pick 2 or 3 things that maybe you haven't done ever, or that you used to do that you kind of got away from doing, and be mindful of that. That gives you responsibility in this process. And the other thing is, don't be the person that gets after somebody else for what they're not doing. Be the person that decides that they're going to, pick up that random bit of garbage on the street or whatever. Or if you see something that's going on that you can affect, then just do it. But don't get on somebody else for not doing what you think they should be doing, because that just pushes them away from being involved in the process. So I hope that makes some sense. Let's take a break. It's top of the hour. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chu. Keep it locked in, because when we come back, we'll be talking with our good friend Sarah Jones from Politicus USA. We'll be right back with more of Chu's Views.
From the headlines to the heart of the city, Richard Chu breaks it all down. You're back on Chu's Views.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the greatest clapback in the history of American politics.
Trump seems to think you're a gift to the Republican Party. What do you say to that?
I'm a gift to the state of Michigan, God willing, and hope to win this election.
And he says, if you pardon the language, you're full of What do you say to that?
At least I don't let mine go in the middle of the Oval Office.
Yeah, thanks to musical artist Eric Benet. That was the initial voice of that in posting. But the heart of it was Dr. Syed, ready with the clapback, very quickly responding to what that reporter said about what Trump said about him, and then he was ready to go. Our good friend Sarah Jones from Politicus USA is with us this morning, and I'm sure she can appreciate that kind of humor. Good morning, Sarah, and welcome to the show. Uh-oh. Do I have my finger on the button? No? All right. Well, Sarah will be with us, I guess, shortly. We'll just keep it going. Yeah, I love those kinds of clips. Those are the ones that make me really, really happy when I hear someone that is doing what they do and that they are prepared. I was just saying to the guys that one of the things about Dr. Syed is that he is prepared for when they bring him some garbage. And whether it's been something like that where, it's a on-the-fly interview where a reporter walks up to him and says something like that, and he's ready to respond with, at least I don't do it in the Oval Office. That's pretty good. And or in other situations where he's doing an interview on one of the networks, and they come at him with some other garbage, and he's ready to respond, and he's very, very adept at turning the focus back to Michigan voters and not letting it be something about him specifically, but more broadly, I'm here for Michigan voters. And I think that's got to be part of the conversation, and he knows that. And at the same time, what he's very, very good at doing is deflecting is not the right word, but not letting it get to him. I said to the guys earlier that it's like he's a great stand-up comedian in terms of his quick response time, his ability to say, I'm not water off the back. Let's let it run off my back. And he doesn't take it on and get flustered by it and frustrated and angry at the person asking him the question. He just has a good sense of humor about it. And when I see that, I think that's a person who is comfortable with themselves. And I'm sure Sarah's going to have a few comments about that. So, hey, good morning, Sarah. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Richard. As I was trying to say before, welcome to the new day of politics.
Woo! Don't you want him on your team? Don't you want that kind of energy on your team?
Yeah, I do. And actually, really glad to see the people standing up for what they want instead of, one of the things that really stood out for me with that primary was sort of the battle that's going on inside the Democratic Party. And I think and I don't want to bash on the Democratic Party as compared to the Republican Party, but when you look at what's gone wrong with the Democratic Party and why a lot of Democrats did not come out to vote, I think that this primary told that story. Mm-hmm. So they've been trying to push a certain kind of thing, which is, I would say, Republican light on their base for a long time, and people have been really, really patient and saying, okay, we're going to do pragmatic, slow progress. But then they see what Donald Trump is doing, where he's just doing whatever the heck he wants and things that aren't constitutional. He's breaking laws left and right. And now people are fed up. They're like, if he can do it, then you can get in here and fix things with the same energy. So, yeah.
I was having a conversation via email with one of the other hosts here on WCPT, Eric Grant, who hosts a family meeting on Sundays, and then one of our listeners out on the West Coast. And he asked a question about African-American voters not voting for Dr. Syed. And I said, the real conversation is, where is that commentary coming from? To your point, Sarah, about how a lot of this is being put on us. And African-American voters are going to be pragmatic once again in the state of Michigan, and they're going to recognize that staying at home is not an option, and that they're going to come out and vote because they realize that Mike Rogers is not the solution. Not only is he a Republican, he's awful. He's going to be awful more so than he has been, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, but the point was that don't let the talking points of Republicans or, frankly, some weak Democrats be the talking points for the entire party when it comes to Dr. Syed running, or any other candidate, whether it be James Tallarico. We have to get behind who our primary winner has been in any election in any state. That's our responsibility. It's not to get all, whiny about, well, they didn't spoon feed it to me just the right way, so I'm staying at home. Then if you'd stay at home, no matter where you are on the Democratic spectrum, you don't get to whine about things. You just don't. You gave up your opportunity to complain if you don't show up to vote, and a Republican gets into a particular seat. Don't come to us whining.
And the other thing is that primary was absolutely brutal. I have family. I'm from Michigan originally, and I have family that lives there. And they were talking about just being bombarded with this. There was so much money spent against him. And so that primary was brutal. And a lot of the talking points that were pushed against him by, a variety of big money sources, one of which is AIPAC, was really ugly. I mean, that's when you talk about what's wrong with the system and why people might not want to vote for one person or why they didn't vote for one person. Why don't we talk about why are we letting big money dictate our candidates? Because look where that has gotten us. We are back in the place where only a very few people are benefiting from this government, and it is only protecting a very small share of the people, most of whom are very wealthy and elite and connected. And that takes us back to the Democratic Party and what's gone wrong with it, because as you probably saw, that the post-mortem from 2024, the Democratic Party apparently hid the one part they didn't want to talk about, which is how their consultants have led them wrong.
Yep.
And how they are basically the rot in the party, which I have been saying for several years now. They are overpaid. They're elitist. They have no idea what's going on, and they're the ones that keep pushing this party into this. When I look at what's happening in the UK, the battle there, it's very interesting because obviously our Overton window here in the United States is way over to the right as compared to any place in Europe. But when you look at what's happening in the UK, you see Labour just could not get into power for very long, for decades. And when they do, they lose power pretty quickly. And it could be, a lot of it is the media's against them, as the media's against the Democrats here. But the other part of that is that they were serving up Tory light. Mm-hmm. By trying to appease that same media, all they're doing is they're chasing after something they're never going to be, which is what Democrats have become here. Not all of them, but too much of that part of it. Yeah, too much of them. They're not exciting people because they're saying, I'm going to give you Republican light. I'm going to give you pro-corporate to the point of where you really can't tell the difference, except that we stand for some things that do matter, some, important policies that do matter, but it's not enough to invigorate this voters into really feeling heard. And that's what I think they really missed in 2024. And of course, we knew that was going to happen. And I actually told them that was going to happen as soon as they decided that Joe Biden wasn't the candidate. Mm-hmm. Nothing against Kamala Harris, who was, had she been given the normal amount of time to run, and had she not been saddled with the same people who, watered down her candidacy towards the end, I think she would have been a very powerful, and I thought she was at the time actually a very powerful candidate. So it's no criticism of her, but they decided that they were in charge of who is going to be the candidate.
That goes to your point about the consultancy class. And I asked a question a few weeks ago, that do we just, do we need to get rid of the consultants that have led the Democratic Party in this direction that really is away from the voters, which is so crazily ironic about this. And this is why listen, sir, this is my point. And it's going to be my beat for a while. What Dr. Syed has done, and people can trash talk him about where he is in terms of certain things that he may have said that may have ticked some people off, et cetera. I get that, because when you're in the public space, you're going to say something that may not in the moment be the best thing to say or the best timing, but it may not be a bad thing. Okay, there's a difference between not the best and a bad or a hurtful thing. That's how I see it. But in this moment, what he's doing is he's listening to the voters from all the things that I'm reading and following. Let's be honest, he won a primary in Michigan that is supposedly, this is the part that we get misled, supposedly this moderate Democratic state, but he won a primary against a sitting congresswoman who had a ton of money, and the voters said, guess what? Our voice matters in all of this money. And yeah, more is coming against him now that it's the general, but that's what I think the consultants and the corporate media and a lot of people are missing. get on board with the energy that he's created and flood him with as much support as possible to beat Mike Rogers, rather than, because every time I turn on the television and I see something, an interview that he sat for, the interviewer, even folks like Caitlin Collins, start off by asking a question about where and what. Israel. Okay, when are we going to stop doing that? How about asking a question about how do voters in Lansing or in Flint, Michigan feel about your stance on better improving the environment? So this is where that mistake, but what he's doing is he's standing up in those moments. And the more Democrats across the country can take some lessons from the way in which he's handling some of those things, in my opinion. Sarah, before you respond, let's take a quick break so we've got some time on the back end to talk about what we just mentioned. Let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us here on Chew's Views. We're with our good friend Sarah Jones from the Politicus USA. Sarah, let's go back to where we were before we went to break, and then I've got a question that's kind of coming from one of our listeners. But I feel like Democrats across the board should take some lessons from how Dr. Syed is dealing with media and questions that are coming at him, rather than rebuking him and saying he can't win and tying him to people that have been, bad voices, Hassan Piker and many others. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, number one, I think that it's a bad faith effort to tie him to people who say that they're democratic socialists, for example, or even further to the left. He has said that he is not a democratic socialist. He is a progressive. He is a liberal. Why is that happening? So when I look at what's happening in the media and in the Democratic Party, these accusations that were tossed at him, it's very disingenuous. The truth is that one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, and I'm going to write something about this, I'm just absolutely fed up with it, is that this concept of what is a moderate, because you see the Democrats keep trying to say, we've got to have a moderate. What is a moderate? Why is it that you're defining a moderate as somebody who is pro-corporate and pro-elites? Why is pro-business moderate when actually this government is right? Because that is what they're saying. And you hear that all of these media people, and honestly, I don't have it in me to listen to most of the people in the media anymore. They're so dishonest, and they're framing things in such a way that it's like, why don't you? I think I wrote something about 10 years ago about how these people should all have logos on their foreheads for who they are being paid by in the House of Representatives, in the Senate, and on the media. Like, who are your advertisers? Why is it everything you're saying is only representing business interests? And you see that that's what's happened with our economy right now, that it's only Wall Street that's doing well. Everything else, inflation has gone up, jobs are down. Everything is that fissure has never been in more stark relief in modern history than it is right now, in my opinion. Like, you're just seeing this play out.
And we got to stop. We got to stop. I'm sorry, Sarah. We got to stop attacking our own team. There's a difference between criticizing or saying this is where we should be working to do better. That's different than just criticizing and then suddenly making these dotted lines turn into solid lines because somebody may have been working with or connected to somebody in the past. From our side, let's put that energy toward the right. We got to stop doing that, Democrats. If you truly are, wherever you are on the spectrum, and with regard to community, culture, faith, economics, all the rest, if you are truly committed to us winning back on a federal level, what we need to slow down this Trump train, then you need to stop just being stupidly critical or finding one thing that the person did that's not perfect and making that the story. That's insane if you truly believe. Now, if you don't truly believe and you're full of you know what, and you just want to play this game and be a keyboard warrior and find reasons to find fault, then go about that. But don't pretend like you really want us to win and to succeed. And I say that to anybody, whether they're on social media, Sarah, whether in corporate media, whether they're part of the party, whether they're a listener, a follower, or whatever. Get on board and push us in a direction to help us win rather than finding the fault. It's just insane.
Well, I mean, the thing is, the voters of Michigan made their decision. It is not up to anybody else to decide. That is how government is supposed to work. That is what happened. People, you're either going to get the message. The issue is, are people going to listen to what the voters said? Why? Immediately after this election, I said, I wonder if the Democratic Party is going to have a sit down and listen to what they've just been told again, because they're not listening. They are not listening. And then I noticed, like, the next day they came out with some good PR talking points. I don't believe any of them. I think they had good PR, and that's great. I'm all for good PR. But the truth is, they didn't really hear what was said. What was said is, we are not tolerating what you are doing anymore. You must listen to the voters. You must represent the voters. You must stop representing other interests before the voters. It isn't that people don't understand why other interests don't matter. It isn't that people are saying don't care about anybody, don't care about other countries. That's not the point. And I think that anyone that extends it that far is missing the point. The point is that this government has veered too far away from its core job, which is to protect the people. The people are not protected. They can't afford health care. They can't afford their groceries. They can't afford gas. Take care of this business before you cater to others and give everything to big business. And so going back to my other point about what is a radical, and I looked at all of Al-Sayed's positions. I don't see anything radical here. There is nothing crazy radical here that should scare anyone who actually wants the people of this country to get some decent protection from their government. This is what people are entitled to. There is nothing radical about it. And everyone that's acting scared about, I actually wonder if a lot of this isn't racism. Because
Sarah, come on, it is. I mean, why does every question?
I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the media.
Oh God! From even within the party, some of it's racist. That's why. Sorry.
No, I mean, I'm just saying, like, when I've heard the way every single person that talked to him at CNN.
Oh yeah.
And I could get into their histories, but I was sitting here going, do you guys understand how you sound? I mean, do you understand what is wrong with the way you sound and the way you're bringing up Donald Trump's criticism of his name? Do you not? Are we in fifth grade? What are you doing? Is this the playground? Is that where you play? Like, do you have no intelligence that you're bringing to the table? There's no part of you that sifts through things that Donald Trump, who has the brain of a 5-year-old, the things that he's saying, and you're bringing that to this very intelligent man for a conversation. That's the only thing you can think of.
Well, and here's a parallel to run on.
Is that what's important?
Sarah,
what about what the people wanted?
I know.
Why is Donald Trump's insult important?
I keep coming back to that. You're right. The voters said, this is the guy we want. And we know, we're not stupid. We know, even if I'm a low information voter per se, because this is where it's hurting folks. This is where they're having a tough time across the spectrum. Dr. Sayed did not win this primary without rural white voters. He did not win it without that. And that's who they're scared as hell are going to start to move and change. That's what nobody's really talking about. They're all talking about, his association with somebody like Hassan Piker. And the list goes on. They're all talking about these racist-based things and people that he may have been associated with and said, wait a minute, I'm going down the wrong path, and he changed course, whatever. But at the end of the day, Sarah, there are not enough people that, quote, look like him and faith like him in Michigan to have gotten him to win this primary. And people have got to get it through their thick ace skulls that a lot of the people that voted for him were those middle-class, rural white voters that said, he's saying the things that I need to hear to fight for the things that I believe in. That's where a lot of people are getting stuck on stupid, candidly.
Well, what are they afraid of, Richard? Like, what they are afraid of is what we are seeing within the Democratic Party. That is a microcosm of it, but it's what's happening in the larger picture. They're afraid of the people getting their power back.
Yep.
They're afraid that the people are seizing the narrative back, and they're not listening to these people at the top tell them what to do and who to vote for. That's what they're afraid of. So all the racism has all been used throughout history as a means of control. It's a way to control people through division and through fear. So it is a tool that's always been used by people in power to control people beneath them.
Yep, it is.
Power-wise. And that is what it is being used now, and we can see that. What is so embarrassing to me for these people in the media is they don't realize, and I don't think I can use the word that I'm thinking of right now, but they don't realize what they look like to everyone that's watching them. To me, I've just been so embarrassed for them. Like, are you really this
the answer to that thought bubble is yes. You and I will have that conversation. You don't have to worry about the FCC.
Because many of them are, were trained through conservative organizations to work in the media, and they do work there now. And then it really drives me nuts to see people listening to them and thinking that they're somehow resistors.
Sarah, it's always great to have you on. We need more time as always, but we got to take a quick break. Good to hear your voice. Glad you're well. Thanks, Sarah. Always refreshing to chat with you.
Much.
All right. All right, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew. Thanks for being with us. And thanks to our good friend, Sarah Jones, who is, I'm always so appreciative of the fact that we get to the end of a segment and we have to wrap up so quickly. But Sarah is a professional. She understands how it works with live anything. So thanks, Sarah, for being with us. Tune into her and follow her. Another voice that has fought uphill battle against the people that said, okay, just go sit down. You made a mistake. We don't want you around. And I'm not of that mindset. They empower people to leave MAGA and tell their stories, to work to foster some reconciliation with friends and family and people who may not even know them but don't like what they did and decided to do in the direction that they took us. And they put together kind of a movement that is designed to help other people leaving MAGA. With us this morning is the founder of that organization, Rich Logis. Good morning, Rich, and welcome back to the show.
Hey, Richard. Good to be back with you. Good morning. I always say this every month. The month goes so fast, and I always look forward to this second Monday of the month. So thanks for having me again.
As always, man. You listen. One of the things that is part of the compassion that we all say that we're supposed to have, no matter what faith we are from and what we believe in, is that we got to give folks an opportunity. I'm pretty stringent with this. I'm pretty when I hear this, I get these comments. Why do you have this guy on? Blah 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 blah. It's because he's doing more than in many cases some people who are locked in far left. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying the reason is because we're trying to build a team, an arsenal that will allow us to take back our country. And if that means we partner with the people that have said, hey, wait a minute, I was going down the wrong path, and stop, and then go back in a different direction and bring some people with them, that's the direction that we want to go, and that's the energy that we all collectively want to have. So I always like to remind people at the beginning of the segment when we have you on, Rich, that's why we do this, is that we want to build this coalition to be as strong as we possibly can make it, so that we can take back the country that we all believe in. So thanks for being with us, my man. I'm always glad to hear your voice. And you've been busy, as always. I look up and I go, there he is again.
Well, I feel like I say this every month also, but it's the truth. We've never been busier. Our community is growing. We now have billboards in 24 states with more to come. Our boards are going up in red rural areas. For example, in Georgia, West Virginia, we've got a couple in West Virginia right now. Our support groups for friends and family of those in MAGA continue to be well attended. And I just think it's a testament, not to me, but to our team and to all of our supporters, that our messaging and our work, they continue to resonate. And I'm of the belief, Richard, that there are more people than ever who are in MAGA who are harboring doubts right now. And I think there are more than we realize who have quietly left MAGA. And we want to give them a pathway out of the extremism of MAGA politics, where people can become what I call a born-again human being, and they can reclaim their empathy, their individuality, and their agency. That's what we are all about. And all of our leaders who are with us, who have told their stories publicly, they are helping to advance this work and this cause that we're so passionate about.
Yeah, that's good. That's so good to hear. Well, we may get a chance to chat a little bit about the billboards, but our guest, our combined guest, is a little bit of a volleyball and basketball and softball fan, and I want to know if Bailey Taylor, are you any good at any of those three? Are you any good at hoops or volleyball or softball?
I was at one point, but at 30 years old, I don't think I can do any of that anymore.
The running and jumping is your body is said, oh, okay, Bailey, you go out there again. We're gonna make you sit down for a little bit. Was that be part of the story?
You know, I have a home gym and I don't use it, so that tells you my level of athletic capability.
Bailey Taylor is one of those folks that Rich was just talking about in terms of people that said it's time to make a change. But Bailey, I'll let you tell us your story rather than me tell it, and we'll get into a couple of questions. How did this come about? How did you get there? And then what was the moment or moments that you said, okay, I got to make a change? Talk to us.
Yeah, like a lot of people who are leaving MAGA now, it's not a simple story. The too long did not read is that I was raised by a racist, homophobic, bigoted father. I was very male-centered, so I sought validation from him, and I didn't question a lot of the things that he taught me in my upbringing. So when Donald Trump came around, and mind you, I did not know who this man was. A lot of people bring that up. They're like, Donald Trump's been bad since, the 80s or whatever. And I didn't know who he was. I just knew from everybody around me that he was going to make America great, and what that means, still don't know to this day. But I was really primed, and the personal failing for myself is that I didn't question any of it. So, fell into MAGA. I really got deep into it around 2018 when I started listening to like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, Megyn Kelly, all those people. And I was working the night shift in a factory, and so I had 10 hours a night to listen to these people, and really got into it. I never really watched the news per se. I wasn't listening to Donald Trump talk. I wasn't going to rallies, but these talking heads, these pundits, were really feeding me, a lot of the BS that I was believing. And then I started college in 2019 and was still listening to these people, but I remember it was Kayleigh McEnany, and she was like Fox and Friends or something, and she started talking about how kids should not be calling their private parts by the anatomical names. And I thought that, red flags went up immediately. I was like, that's a really weird thing to say. And I just remember that specific moment is when I really started to question things. I had left my small town, was getting a college education, was also deconstructing my religion. There were so many things going on at that time. But I remember questioning that, and I actually stopped watching it because of that statement that she made. And then as I've, told Rich with leaving MAGA, I started to diversify started listening to the AP or reading the AP and stuff like that, NPR. And it just really was an evolution that had started in late 2019 and early 2020. I don't know the day that I left, but I do know that around the time that George Floyd sadly left this earth and had his life taken from him brutally, that's kind of when I realized I was done or already had been done and had left MAGA. I was watching the press briefings every day from Donald Trump during COVID-19, and that was really the first time that I had actually paid attention to him, which is crazy to believe, but it's true. I never really actually listened to him talk, and this man he just sounded like an idiot to me, and I couldn't believe the things he was saying, whether it was just problematic stuff in regards to medical treatments or, just his normal racist, bigoted, homophobic rhetoric that he would spew out every single day. But that's when I realized I was like, I'm done. And unfortunately, it did take me time to deconstruct. I thought I was a libertarian for a little bit, and I did vote for Donald Trump twice. I'm very open and honest about that. But my mindset at that time was still very, I was real deep in the propaganda still that, Democrats are bad. I can't vote for Democrats. And I couldn't tell you one reason why I thought Joe Biden was not a good option. That tells you how brainwashed still that I was, but that's the too long didn't read.
Well, listen, first of all, kudos to you for a couple of very transparent things. I think for all of us, when we recognize when we've had a mistake or made a mistake, or not even a mistake, but something that wasn't the intent, is to quickly correct it and go down a path of correcting that which you did and getting with the people that you may have harmed or hurt or given the wrong impression. It's hard, but it's easy. It's so relieving to get that stress off of you. I use the phrase here on the show many times, clean up on aisle 7, because I know I can go down the aisle and knock some stuff over, not intentionally, but just by trying to move down the aisle. And I mean that in terms of, the show and the people that I've been blessed to talk with. So I understand where you're coming from in that space. And the thing that Dalia, I think a lot of other people sometimes can't acknowledge is that they weren't paying attention. They should have been. They should have been more aware. But then when they realize that they weren't, to just say it and then go, okay, now going forward, I'm going to probably be uber aware and pay very close attention to everything that everybody is saying, because I never want to go back down that path again. And it sounds like you kind of had that movement in your belief system or your operating system, which was, I'm paying attention to everything. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, as soon as I realized that, I had left this cult, I really dove into learning more about politics. Although, like I said, I was a libertarian, or thought I was. I don't. It was it was definitely a phase. I thought I was a libertarian, but I started researching, different political ideologies and seeing where I would align, and I just kept moving further to the left because I was gaining empathy, and I realized that the party that I had been associated with they don't have empathy. They don't care for others. And so I really wanted to make that the forefront of my beliefs, was caring for others. And how I've, actually shown that, just put my money where my mouth is here in Oklahoma, public education is a huge issue. We had the state superintendent, Ryan Walters. If you know him, you know him. If you don't, definitely look him up. But I joined, it was Defense of Democracy at one point, and then we kind of broke off and did our own thing, but basically advocated for public education in Oklahoma, fighting for trans kids, fighting for disabled kids, children of color, just fighting for everybody against the far right, MAGA, whatever you want to call them, just fighting against them because they really were harming our most vulnerable people. And I was very lucky that, I was always open with my past, that I was a former Trump supporter and was in MAGA, but people were very open to accepting me because I was willing to do the work. excuse me, and I ended up stopping doing that work because I did get a thyroid cancer diagnosis, and so now I'm better, thankfully. But I'm looking for my next act of advocacy or activism, in my local area, because that's where it really matters the most is your local area. And so the work's not over.
No.
I'll never not do something or never not fight. So
yeah, I'm going to tease you a little bit. Those good medical benefits that Democrats are always fighting for. To your point, Republicans want to take stuff away. Democrats are trying to make sure that you get in and out of the medical facility and not have a major bill that you got to, swallow down. So. Yeah, Bailey and Rich, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what you guys are working on and some things that I think are all important to us right now as we head to the midterms. The number is 773-763-9278. I'm Richard Chew. Keep it locked in. We'll be right back with more of Chew's Views. All right, guys, welcome back to Chew's Views. If you're just tuning in, I'm Richard Chew, and we are talking with Rich Logis of Leaving MAGA and Bailey Tyler, who is an organizer and has one of the folks that has left MAGA, saw a new way. And I think deep down inside, in some ways, Rich, Bailey probably knew. And Bailey, you probably would say the same, but you just needed to be in the right environment that was going to push that other side, that better angel in you, as former President Obama would often refer to. I think you knew that there was a different option, and you've made a point to be involved in helping the people that are, in that part of the community that constantly gets, talked about and not helped, and made to be the villain and the other. And you found that out, and you're moving forward. That's great to see.
Yeah, how I describe it is, it was easy to make the right choices once I knew that I could, and then it was a lonely process, but it felt right, and I don't regret it one bit.
Yeah, that's so great to hear. So, what do you guys think about where the GOP is right now? I mean, when I think about the GOP, all I think about, or all I really getting from that, and this is not MAGA specific, but more GOP broadly, that it is a party that is really all about more hate and more disconnect and more taking away and more otherism, and not about those things that, we all would like to say we believe in, which is to try to move our country truly moving forward. And MAGA has still got its teeth in so many parts of the GOP. Am I out in left field, or do you guys see that somewhat similarly? Rich, you go for it.
I think so. When I was in MAGA, Richard, it was a fantasy of ours to kill off the GOP and transform it into the MAGA party.
Wow.
And that has been achieved and accomplished. I know it's called the Republican Party, but it's just in name only. One of our two major parties is the MAGA party. And if you notice something that Bailey said, and it's a leitmotif throughout so many of these special guest appearances that we do monthly, she diversified her news and information sources.
Yeah.
That was something that I also did, which was a turning point for me. It was profoundly life-altering and changing for me to diversify my news and information sources. And we are developing at Leaving MAGA a media literacy program. And it's going to be entitled, Where Did You Hear That? And the goal of it, Richard, is to combat mis and disinformation, which I believe is at a national crisis level in our country right now. And while I'm not going to say that MAGA is the only information siloed group, what I can attest to confidently, having been in MAGA for 7 years, is that there is no group who is more information siloed than is MAGA. And I guess this is some good news that I believe it's some good news that I want to share, is that I think most people in MAGA deep down know that Trump is a dishonest person and that something is amiss in the country. But people in MAGA are very deeply invested in this identity and this community, and it's why I believe our work is more important than ever to show people that there's an exit ramp out of this where they no longer have to live a life based on lies, falsehoods, and conspiracy theories. Because in order to leave MAGA, just like Bailey did, it's not enough to just distance oneself from the president. Someone must also renounce the lies, falsehoods, and conspiracy theories of MAGA politics, and also do something else that alludes to the point you made earlier about alliances. We need to build up democracy rather than tear it down. And I believe the way that we do that is making the continued case that we agree more than we disagree. So I think that there's an opportunity between those who have never been in MAGA, to their credit, to join forces in unison with those who have left, because we need as high a turnout as possible in November to make it too big to rig.
Yeah, Bailey, what are your thoughts there?
No, I absolutely agree. And I also, as much as I love that people are leaving MAGA, MAGA is falling apart. Like that's apparent. I am I want to be real with people. As someone, I left in 2020, but I still have my fingers on the pulse of MAGA. And there is going to be people who leave MAGA, and, deconstruction takes time. So that's where the patience comes in. If you have the patience, if you don't, you don't, and it's not your job to deconstruct anybody or to help them. But I do want people to have real expectations around the time it takes to deconstruct, and also with the matter that not everybody who leaves MAGA is leaving to, go in the direction of left, whether that's, center right, center left of center, whatever that is. There are people who are radicalizing, and to Rich's point, that's where we need people, that have never been MAGA to come together with us, because it takes everyone. And not only do we need to help the people that are leaving and truly deconstructing, but also to fight back against those that are radicalizing. There's going to be the Marjorie Taylor Greens and what's his name? I can't even think of it right now. But they're all talking about America First right now, and I think they're going to try to split off into like an America First party, and they sound like they're kind of taking the middle ground, but they're not. And I want people to be very aware of that.
Bailey, listen, that's why the key word to this for me is not only leaving, but the deconstruction, and to tear down the things that we're propping up. So I'm glad that both of you have leaned into that today, because I've been saying for the longest time, just because someone says that they're no longer down with what Trump has been about and what much of the GOP that's still left is still about, I don't trust them, because I know what they did to harm people along the way, and they haven't shown signs of deconstruction. They've said, I have to go in a different direction, and I think that's a political move rather than it being a true social move, which is, you guys, those are my words. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's what I see having happened with a lot of people, and that's those the folks that are silently leaving Trumpism, because they're looking to create something that's going to be just as destructive, but labeled differently. What do you guys think about that?
Absolutely. You're spot on.
Yeah. Rich, talk a little bit about the billboards. Man, they are out there. I love when I see an article that pops up on my notifications about billboards from leaving MAGA, in Tallahassee, Florida, and other places. Talk a little about the success and what your some of the what's the word I want to use? Some of the responses that you may be getting, or comment that you might be getting from people. I'm sure some people have probably said some pretty nasty things, but there's also been a lot of positive, right?
Yeah, the majority, Richard, it's been positive comments. People, for example, the West Virginia boards we just put up, the residents in the areas and the citizens of the state were very pleasantly surprised to see the boards go up. And our messaging is very simple, welcoming, and inviting. It reads, having doubts, you are not alone. And really what we're after is to empower and encourage people who are having doubts right now to reach out to us for support and services. And I am happy to report that we have never had more people in MAGA reaching out to us, saying to us that they are having doubts, that they're feeling scared, they're feeling confused, they're feeling remorseful, and they know that we are a non-judgmental space. And so while it's great to get the attention in the media and the fundraising that come from the billboards, and we've got more on the way, the real metric that we're using to gauge how successful this campaign is how many people who are in MAGA are inquiring with us and are taking that initial step, which is really difficult and terrifying to take that initial step. But the boards are accomplishing that, but we need to get more people who are having those doubts to reach out to us. So this is why, when you have us on and gives a chance for us to spread our message, we're so appreciative, because I know there are people in MAGA who are going to hear this segment, and I want them to know that if they're having doubts and they're questioning their belief system, they're not alone. I know what they're going through. Bailey knows what they're going through, and that they have a place with us that is a safe place where they can go through that deconstruction process.
Right on. Rich, how can folks find you real quick as we wrap up? And by the way, Bailey, thank you for being with us, but also for your transformation and your openness about it. It means a lot to people that are in that same moment. So thank you for that, and continued success to you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Rich, wrap us up. How can folks find you real quick?
Yeah, we could everyone can visit us at weavingmaga.org, and Bailey's story is at our website if you want to read it more in depth. And we've got our other testimonials there. You can subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on our socials, all that at weavingmaga.org. Right on. Thanks, Rich Logis, for being with us. Bailey as well. You guys have a great week, and we'll talk again soon, okay? Okay, thanks, Richard. All right. Bye now, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Bailey.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So, guys, make sure you are staying tuned in today for the one and only Joan Esposito Live Local Progressive. She's going to have great guests, Carolyn Fiddler, Ray LaHood, Peter Giangreco, and then tonight, Patty Vasquez will be joined by Tennessee Brando, Midas Touch contributor, social media commentator, and songwriter from East Tennessee, talking about Tennessee's primary election that took place last week. Always great to be with you guys. Thanks for being with us this morning on Choose Views. Stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. And remember, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.